There's two criteria I always look at with regard to ethics. There's ethics that are associated with having to make tough decisions, tough pressure, time constraints in that environment, and then there's those that aren't, which I consider those, frankly, are the worst ethical issues. And both of those occurred in the Challenger decision. I'm proud of what I did, but as far as ethics was concerned, the biggest breach of ethics was the fact that both my company and NASA attempted to cover up what really happened that night before the launch. And there was obfuscation by NASA on what really caused the final accident, which I went over with the Presidential Commission before they filed the report, and they agreed with me. And to me, that was a bigger error than the pressure at the time, the launch, from a breach of ethics, because they had time to think about it and deceive people. One of the big disappointments I had after going through all that, and a lot of the lessons that were learned from Challenger were fairly well implemented immediately after, but they carried over to a point where they finally were forgotten some 17 years later. When they launched the Columbia that year in 2003, they clearly saw on the film this huge piece of foam, it was called ramp foam, off the tank impact the orbiter. And it actually impacted the leading edge rather than under the tile and shattered. They then ran some analysis of what that impact damage could be, and they had the fanciest, most up-to-date computer model there was available at that time in 2003, and concluded that the damage wasn't significant enough that they couldn't return home safely. There were some engineers at Langley that didn't feel comfortable that that was the case and said, well, we can find out for sure by asking the Department of Defense to turn one of their spy satellites towards the orbiter in orbit, facing towards it, and it will see it in spades if it has significant damage that it would be a catastrophic reentry. So they made a specific request to the mission management team to do that. And it so happened that the mission management team declined that request on the basis that they'd had an analysis done by Boeing on this crater model computer program that was the most fancy thing in the world, and that they don't feel that it was adequate damage, so they didn't need to go through the protocol and all to make a request to make these pictures. It was the first time in the 50-year history of NASA that I saw they went from a can-do attitude to a can't-do, and that was the most serious mistake and the most unethical mistake I think they probably made in their entire history. One of the lessons learned I tell students also is this: don't always believe in all your big computer programs. Use your gut feeling and some back-of-the-envelope test of reasonableness checks on some of those answers, because that will give you far more confidence. And I tell you, some people have better judgment just saying, you know, it doesn't smell right, and you need to do that. And so that's the other lesson learned. And don't presume anything. If you think it's important, make sure that what you thought was important got to the right people. So that's what I wished I would have done.
GC flight. GC flight. Flight GC, block the doors. Copy. Fido, do you have any tracking?
No, sir.
Fido flight.
Go ahead.
Do you have any information or reports from Space Command?